Wake up, this is the INFJ video. Come on, man. Okay. Hi, everybody. Thank you for being here. I hope that you're here. Someone's here. If they're not here now, they will be. Okay, so this is a video explaining what the letters INFJ mean and also giving a very, very, very slightest, brief, most like off the very top description of what a personality type is and what constitutes that. So, if you don't already know someone who identifies as INFJ, know that it's a little bit more than just emotionally identifying with an INFJ. You take a test that helps people understand the way that you mentally and emotionally process stimulation from the outside and also process internal information, your internal world or dialogue, and express it to the outside world. It's literally just understanding your internal diagnostic, how it is that you get through your information that's on the inside and deliver it to the world, and how it is that you take in, understand, process, and then eventually assimilate with that information that you've taken in from the outside world. It's just literally understanding a little bit better how you work. So if you haven't heard about Wikipedia, you need to learn about that now because most of the pieces of really interesting information that you can find on another website called 16personalities.com with the numbers 1, 6, and then all letters personalities.com actually all leads back to Wikipedia pages, and I agree with them. It makes total sense to do that because Wikipedia has this stuff down. So basically, if you've ever taken a psych test, you know that they're not that much fun. But there was somebody else who came up with the idea of a more fun, a more palatable psych test, specifically because this person, Carl's Jung, decided that it made more sense to maybe give the person who is taking the test more autonomy over the test proceedings in order to help speed along the results. In other words, they had a very large group of people and they were noticing that it was taking a long time to get through everybody. And there was this sort of general consensus that was reached that if there was a way to make it a little bit faster by making the questions or making the test itself simpler and more abbreviated, but most of all, making it so that it was almost run like at least in part and partial, like a self diagnostic, then the person taking the test could also help curate the results for the people who were originally administering this test. So instead of it just being someone's looking at you going, in this situation, you have A, B, C, D options. Choose A, and then they read out an option. Choose B, then they read out an option. And then you choose one of these options, and then they basically put you through the ringer as to why you would possibly choose that option, and then why you would choose that option versus the other option. They leave all of that out. They don't do any other. Frankly, I used to find I have taken a couple of psych tests when I was little because I was able to do certain things that the other kids couldn't do. Like I was able to understand different languages other kids couldn't understand, and I tested really, really high. And so they wanted to find out more about me. And so I had this opportunity to start doing this kind of stuff when I was little. And it was pretty interesting. So I kind of kept at it. I kept learning about this stuff. But a lot of people are just getting to it now. But there's this whole sort of subculture, especially I think within the millennial age group, of people who enjoyed that one particular sample of the test we're about to talk about so much that they've used the information and the analytics that came off of that report to help them make better decisions in life. And that's actually very clever. I think that's a really great idea. And 16 Personalities agrees with me. See how I turn that around? So it's almost like I gave 16 Personalities their idea. I didn't. But 16 Personalities is a website that takes this idea of the self-diagnostic and makes it even easier and just boils it down and boils it down until you have so few questions and you really only have 3 or 4 different options to choose from, in all these different scenario-based questions, and they don't put any pressure on you to answer one way or another way. They don't tell you how your test is coming along, and all they do is what I'm going to do with you here. Actually, I'm going to take a sample of that test with you so you can see what it's like. But first, let's just go ahead and read something real quick so that you know a little bit more, because they're much more concise than I am. When I get excited, I don't always get very concise. So the 16 personalities approach has its roots in two different philosophies. One dates back to the early 20th century and was the brainchild of Carl Gustav Jung, the father of analytical psychology. Jung's theory of psychological types is perhaps the most influential creation in personality typology, and has inspired a number of different theories. One of Jung's key contributions was the development of the concept of introversion and extroversion, which is something that I made a video about, what it was like to introduce the idea of sub-introversion and sub-extroversion to a 73-year-old woman. Believe it or not, it was pretty difficult. She has a very high IQ. Doesn't sound like I have one right now. Oh my God, where did my English go? Okay, back on course. So he came up with this idea of introversion versus extroversion, the most out there, the most over the top, the most extreme idea behind extroversion is the person who goes to every party, the person who walks into every open house, as in, when you're walking down the street and it turns out there's a new business that just opened and they're having a literal open house so you can walk through their business and learn about them. The person who walks into also actually just happens to be open houses, private residence where the person has forgot to close the front door. That person who wants to walk into every place that they see, that person that wants to talk to every person that walks by them, that person who never saw a bag or a book that they didn't want to peer into, that person that doesn't seem to truly understand the idea of boundaries and ownership and mayhem versus tuum, that person is a very exaggerated idea of an extrovert. And unfortunately, that's the way we think, in very exaggerated forms. That's the extrovert, that party guy who just hops around and probably dates a lot of people and probably doesn't even know maybe that he's dating a lot of people, versus the introvert, the person who's always inside, the person who's always reading a book, the person who's somehow, especially on K-dramas, they're always listening to classical music. That's not that far off, but still, the person who might choose to spend more time on their piano lessons, or might choose to spend more time on their Sudoku, or might choose to spend more time on things that allow them to process information inside and be inside rather than outside of themselves. And that person who maybe is a little bit soft-spoken, or maybe doesn't interact with other people in a very socially fluent way. Maybe they're a little bit awkward, maybe they're a little bit rude, but they don't really realize that they're rude. So in other words, again, let's put this in the K-drama perspectives. He who cannot marry, or he who will not marry, he was a very extreme example of the introverted personality type. And then pretty much every bad guy in K-drama is the extroverted version. Anyways, he theorized that each of us falls into one of these two categories. But he did a lot more than that. This is just a very, very short, wrapped up version. Besides introversion and extroversion, Jung coined the concept of so-called cognitive functions, separated into judging or perceiving categories. Judging as in, let's make this extreme. You see someone who seems disheveled, so you judge them to be just a sloppy person. But you're not looking at any of the details, so you miss the fact that maybe there's some mud on their shoes. Maybe you miss the fact that there's some dust on their nose, and that there might be some blood and some sweat around their forehead. So you're walking away thinking, well, that person is just a slob. Whereas perceiving is someone who's now they're perceived that this person was probably in a fight or some sort of altercation, and maybe they were the victim, and maybe they're on the run. Okay, so neither one is necessarily correct. We have no idea which one is right. But one made a quote unquote snap judgment. The other one perceived past the initial judgment. So we don't know which one is correct. And for all we know, maybe it's actually a combination of both. Maybe it's something that has nothing to do with either one of those things. But that's the difference between judging and perceiving. Judging kind of goes this far, and perceiving goes way further than that. And also allows you to pick up on those different clues and small details that other people usually miss because it's more important for them to sort of put things into different boxes and perspectives in terms of how they can label it and sort of best categorize things. So one is more obsessed with categorization, and the other one is more interested in the full length story, if you will. So according to Jung, each person prefers one of these cognitive functions and may most naturally rely on it every day in everyday situations. Why am I speaking like some sort of robot? So here's where we get to what 16 Personalities website is using. And the reason why we're getting to what the 16 Personalities website is using is because that is very easy for you to find. I'm going to include a lot of links there, and most of the YouTube videos that you'll find are based off of this website and what these people are focusing on, what they are, their mission statement. Okay. So in the 1920s, Jung's theory was noticed by Catherine Cook Briggs, who later co authored a personality indicator still used today, the Myers Briggs Type Indicator, or the MBTI. So when you hear somebody here saying something like, oh, that wasn't my MBTI score, or what's your MBTI score? That means the person is referring to their psychological type or their score or the outcome of the Myers Briggs type indicator test that they took. And that was very, very popular years ago. Briggs was a teacher with an avid interest in personality typing, having developed her own type theory before learning of Jung's writings. Together with her daughter, Isabel Briggs Myers, they developed a convenient way to describe the order of each person's Jungian preferences. This is how four-letter acronyms were born. So INFJ. This is a four-letter acronym based off of Jungian theory and typology and Myers-Briggs typology. So it's really a really great meeting of the minds or marriage of two different ways of getting to the same point, right? So typological types, and this is from Wikipedia. Psychological Types is volume 6 in the Princeton Bologen edition of collected works of C.G. Jung. It was also published in the UK by Routledge, the original German language edition, which I cannot pronounce. By the way, if you're interested in Carl Jung and maybe you haven't heard of him before, or you have heard of him but you don't know what he did and you're really interested and you're really that studious, curious person, the spelling of his last name is not Y-U-N-G. He was German and spoke German, and I'm sure I'm going to find out soon that I was wrong and that he wasn't German, but yeah, he was German. And anyways, the spelling of his last name is J-U-N-G. So it might seem as though it was Jung, but it's Jung. And anyone that you meet who wants to be all snooty about, I read a Carl Jung book, but they say Jung, just go ahead and stop them. He was from Germany. He spoke German. All of his original transcripts and texts were in German. It's Jung, not Jung. Thank you. I just have a little chip on my shoulder about that because recently somebody did the same thing with me. And I'm like, well, I could judge you to be a doofus, but I perceive that you're just trying to show off, and this is all you have to work with. The book Jung proposed 4 main functions of consciousness: 2 perceiving or non-rational functions, sensation and intuition; to judging or rational functions, thinking and feeling. The functions are modified by two main attitude types, extroversion and introversion. So we have sensing, intuiting, thinking, feeling, and then they're moderated by how extroverted or introverted the person is. Young proposed that the dominant function, along with the dominant attitude, characterizes consciousness, while its opposite repressed and categorizes the unconscious. So you'll understand that a little bit better. In other words, they're saying the way that you act on the outside or the way that you act with the people around you, the way that you act only shows what might be holding you back or controlling you inside. So it gives you a window. It allows you to maybe perceive your way a little bit further into the inner workings of that person's mind. Based on this, the 8 outstanding psychological types are as follows: extroverted sensation, introverted sensation, extroverted intuition, introverted intuition, extroverted thinking, introverted thinking, extroverted feeling, introverted feeling. The psychological types Jung describes in detail the effects of tensions between the complexes associated with the dominant and inferior differentiating functions in highly and even extremely one-sided types. So that's really interesting, right? But the truth is, there was a faster, easier way to perform this test on subjects, and that was to help them do their own self-diagnostic, which is where this test comes from. It actually comes from the Myers-Briggs type indicator. The Myers-Briggs type indicator, the MBTI, is an introspective self-report questionnaire indicating differing psychological preferences in how people perceive the world and make decisions. That's pretty interesting, right? And it makes a lot of sense if you think about it. If someone were to hand you a questionnaire and you were to simply answer what you would do in different situations, it might go on for a very long time. But if they give you a set of options that you have to choose from, now your brain is really working because you have to choose one versus the other and one over another. And you might even begin to set them in order of your preference of the outcome. And so that's the idea behind it, is that actually through doing this test, you have to do a certain amount of work. You have to use all of these different things that we just referred to, right? In order to perform this test, you would have to use your extroverted sensation, your introverted sensation, your extroverted intuition, and so on and so forth. Are you always coming during the time? My dog needed to be a part of this. She says it's important to her. So that's a little bit behind what the test is and why the test is. The test is really there to help you understand yourself a little bit better, how you interact with the world, and therefore what different choices you can make that are stacked in your favor, right? So maybe if you're an INFJ, for instance, we're about to get back to, maybe if you're an INFJ, there are certain jobs that won't be right for you because they're not going to fit you very well. Whereas other jobs might allow you to sort of bloom and blossom and grow and do a very good job and not only succeed, but exceed expectations and change those limitations. That's really the idea behind the website 16 Personalities, is helping people make better choices so that they can live better lives. So they've really taken the idea of this introspective self-report questionnaire from the Myers-Briggs or MBTI score and married it together with Carl Jung's framework to create the 16 Personalities test, which you can find on 16personalities.com. And they take it one step further. They create a whole other subtype, being the INFJ. So originally there were so many questions and there were so many possible answers. There were, frankly, too many possible answers, as in there were too many MBTI scores. So what they actually did was they boiled things down to simplify it, but then they threw in another letter. And I'm going to tell you about that now. That would be the J with the INF. Due to its simplicity and ease of use, the four-letter naming model has been embraced by a number of diverse theories and approaches over the last few decades, including frameworks such as socionics, Kersey, temperament sorter, Linda Burns, interaction styles, and many others. And of course, I'll include links to those as well in the description after I post this video. This video is live streaming right now. So each theory defines them in their own way, and it is entirely possible that if you meet 5 people who all say, I am an INFJ, their definitions of INFJ means are going to differ. So there's types versus traits. We're not going to go through all of that because it's just going to take too long. But so there's 5 personality aspects: nature, nurture, tactics, identity, and so on and so forth. There's type groups. The 16 Personalities website uses a system. Our system has 2 layers. The first, inner, one defines our roles, as in our roles in society, and the second, outer, defines our strategies, how we strategize to get ahead or how we strategize to survive or to live. And so within those are roles like analysis, assertive, and then there's diplomats, then there's sentinels, explorers, then there's confident individualism, people mastery, constant improvement. So it goes on and on and on. It's not very complicated, but it can feel that way in the beginning. So what I prefer to do when I introduce someone to this entire framework and how the test works and the website. Come here, girl. Come here. You want to stay there? Miju's on the floor. Miju up. Yogi. Yogi. Nope. Okay. Is to just dive into their explanation of the INFJ, which I know you're going, that's what we came here for. So, an advocate INFJ is someone with the introverted, intuitive, feeling, and judging personality types. So, they tend to approach life with deep thoughtfulness and imagination. Their inner vision, personal values, and quiet, principled version of humanism guide them in all things. I know what you're thinking. What did she just say? Treat people as if they were what they ought to be, and you help them to become what they are capable of being. Johann Wolfgang von Goethe. That should give you a really, really good hint. Yeah. The person who wrote this wasn't saying treat people the way that they should be and they will be better than that or they will be as good as that. He was saying treat them as they should be. Treat them or respect them the way that you would respect someone who's doing all the things that they should be. Yeah. And then they will be the best of what they can be so far in how they can work. That is the philosophy of an INFJ. That's the way that we think. And if you're here, that's probably the way you think. Yeah. Sorry. INFJs are usually animal people. It's true. They're usually animal people. So they actually subcategorize INFJs into INFJ A and INFJT, which is something that is completely and totally a 16 personalities thing. Nobody else does that. Essentially, it means someone who is a little bit more introverted than extroverted, not as in they must be indoors at all time and away from all human beings. Just means they're a little bit more inside than outside. It means that they're intuitive, as in they trust their intuition or they listen to their intuition, and that intuition helps them make their decisions. So they're strongly intuitive. They're feeling and judging. So the way they feel on a subject greatly helps sway the way they judge that subject to be. Believe it or not, that's not true for everybody. Not everyone does that. A lot of times they will, most people who are not INFJ, they'll ignore the way they feel about somebody or something because of the facts that they have. And that means they'll also ignore their intuition, whereas an INFJ won't do that. INFJs are advocates, meaning they want to ask you to help them to help you. They want to help you. They need to do that in order to be happy. It's like a compulsion. So let's go over here for a second. They have this great list how you can explore the type. And then that's even if you don't take the test, you can explore it. Here's a really great thing that Kate Blanchett said. In the end, it's your actions, how you respond to circumstances that reveals your character. So that was a very perceptive thing of her to say, which shows that she's perceptive. Not everybody is. A lot of people aren't. They take it as it is what it is. So maybe you say, "Oh, I think it's good to leave it the way it is." One person's going to just walk away saying that you said that you think it's good the way it is, whereas other people might walk away saying, "I think that they are settling," or another person will say, "Oh, I think that person must be, very negative, very negatively minded because they don't think it can be any better." So a lot of people can walk away from what you say with all these different ideas, and then some people just walk away with whatever you said. INFJs are the sort of people that try to see beyond the thing that you said, not into an ulterior motive, but into the the source why or how come. Few personality types are as passionate and mysterious as advocates. As someone with this personality type, your imagination and empathy make you someone who cherishes their integrity and deeply held principles. Unlike many other idealistic types, however, you are also capable of turning those ideas into plans and executing them. So you're also part strategist if you're an INFJ. Maybe you feel like if you could introduce certain ideas and concepts to people in a way that was palatable and enjoyable for them, you could help them understand through their enjoyment of that thing how to be a little bit more open minded towards people. So, in other words, let's just look at different children's programs you might have come across when you were little, or maybe when your kid was little. If you ever saw something called Reading Rainbow, if you ever saw something like Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood, that's someone who's very passionate about their different, their integrity and their different ideals, not so much about society as a whole, but about the individual person and how they need to be appreciated. So they do what they can to make it into something that's really enjoyable for other people so that other people can come to have a new association with that thing. Just in that particular case, for instance, that's something that an INFJ would totally do. A lot of INFJs, or a lot of very famous singers, are INFJs. A lot of very famous actors and actresses and poets are INFJs, were INFJs, probably will be INFJs. And what's different about 16 personalities versus a lot of those other websites, which I'll also include the links to, is that they just stop at the letter, the acronym INFJ. But on 16 personalities, they subcategorize it into advocate, oh, my neck, oh, or turbulent. So if you're turbulent, that's a little bit different. So personally, I've tested multiple times as being literally 50-50 in between the A and the T. And then I've also tested many times as being T and many times as being A. So, but it's always just a slight lean. It's never a full tilt all the way. So I think a certain amount of that might be the headspace or the season that you're in your life that can change the way that you think or how you would act in certain situations. One time I even got and ENFJ, which is really, really different. It might seem like, well, that's just taking the I of introverted and making it E. But in this particular system, it's really a formula. So the placement of that letter, it's kind of like if you're learning Korean, where you put that letter in relationship to the next letter changes your pronunciation and your enunciation of that first letter. The way that they interact with each other actually affects every letter individually, and therefore the outcome as a whole, the entire word. That's the way that this system works. So advocates can be easily tripped up in areas where their idealism and determination are more of a liability than an asset. There are many areas in life where you may face challenges that at times can even make you question who you really are. Anything from navigating interpersonal conflicts, confronting unpleasant facts, pursuing self realization, and finding a career path that aligns well with your inner core can cause internal frustration. Right here. The thing that I've wanted to do for a very, very long time is perform. And I felt like that was one thing that I absolutely shouldn't do because I felt like I wasn't good enough to do it. Not so much that I felt like I couldn't dance better than I was dancing at the time, or that I couldn't sing better than I was at the time, or I couldn't learn how to write music, which I'm still trying to do, or that I couldn't learn how to play the guitar, which I'm still doing. It's that I felt like my quality as a person wasn't good enough because what I wanted to help people do a little bit was be kinder to each other, be kinder to themselves. And it sounds like all I wanted to make was kumbaya music, but it was more than that. I also realized that where the market is versus where I look like, what I look like, it would be really difficult. But I decided I'm going to just do it anyway. It might be really difficult for people on the other side of the world to watch me perform. They might feel uncomfortable with me. I came up with a fair amount of racism, not as terribly as some people have endured for sure, but it made me so scared to even try. I thought, oh, I would fail, and then also, oh, I'm feeling this way because my character isn't strong enough. So it was really just putting stuff on myself, and that's unfortunately kind of a side effect or just a part of being an INFJ. You start to sort of make a big deal out of different things that might not have even have happened yet, and you might not be able to realize those different things because you're stopping yourself. Well, the other part of being an INFJ is this, um, and this is just me talking. This is not me reading from the site. This is not me explaining what I've just read. This is just me being me. When you realize that you need a better life altogether and you realize that you need to change, you do it. And it's very uncomfortable and it's very shaking. But at the same time, you realize maybe the best way to do that is to figure out the right formula to do that in. And I figured out the right formula. And for me, and that is to structure my day so that I can work on my music, I can work on my art, I can work on my creation, and also creating a better me. But then I'm also doing a new business, and that new business is the reason why I'm able to do better videos now, the reason why they're only going to get better from here. And that's called LS. And that's what I do now is I help people. I figured out a way to help people and be an ambivert and stay safe indoors and make a real tangible difference in other people's lives. And if you would like to be able to do that too, if you'd like to be able to make a difference in other people's lives while staying safe and while using your ambivert powers literally for good and have the time to learn about things like 16personalities.com, like Myers Briggs typology, like the basic psychology framework as created or listed by Jung, then what I'm doing might be the right thing for you to start doing. you may or may not be interested, but I suggest that you take a look because this is what's making such a big difference in my life right now. And I know that it can make a really big difference in yours. So I'm going to put the link to my personal website down there as well, and a couple of links where you can watch videos about this really incredible thing that I'm doing that I know is helping people around the world. But I actually have to get going because there is a very special meeting going on right now that I'm a part of. And I really hope that you guys enjoyed this video. Um, oh no, I missed your comments because I was going through everything. I'm so sorry that I missed your comments. I promise I will look at all of them. I'm going to go ahead and try and copy and paste them all into a Word document right now so I can take a look at them. Thank you so much for coming to this really, really special video. I was so excited about doing this video, but I need to do it right after doing another video, my video for the uh, Papa Recipe Organics. It's an emulsion. It was amazing. I used it on my face. I'm not wearing any makeup right now. This is just from using that emulsion from Papa Recipe, and I'll put the link to that video down there as well. But I hope that you guys stay safe. I hope you stay well. I hope that you keep being interested and introspective and extroverted and all the other things as well, so you can learn about the world around you and the incredible, amazing, endless deep dive of the world inside of you. And I hope that you make it to 16, that's 16personalities.com, and take the test for yourself. The test is free, everything is free. And then you can learn a little bit more about yourself and a little bit more about INFJs. I'm an INFJ. Originally, this channel had a couple different names, and at some point it was INFJ Discovering the World. I am an INFJ. I'm in a lot of these different groups where it seems like there's only supposed to be a couple. I'm also an indigo child. I'm all these different things according to the world, but ultimately I am a endless opportunity to grow and do better. That's what I think I am. That's who I know I am. And I know that you are too. And if you're interested in learning how you can be, I'm just sorry, I'm copying what you're writing in the chat so I can make sure I can look at it. If you guys are interested in doing something that allows you to help people from home, your own home, not meeting people in person, but making a real tangible difference in their lives while still making money and having time to be able to learn about all these incredible, interesting, cool things, I suggest that you go to my website. I'm also in a small competition right now, and I almost got it. I just need one more client, and then I will actually have not only won the competition, but I'm going to get a raise. And I can't believe it because it's only been 2 weeks, but this is really incredible. Anyways, take a look at all those links. Thank you guys so much for being here. I love you. I appreciate you, and I'll see you next time. Krom, baguette ba?